Should be here.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, we're good. Good evening. We are coming out of closed session into open at 6 p.m. I will turn the floor over to Councillor Luciani.
Today we recognize the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Attawataran as the customary keepers and defenders of the Great Turtle Island, its waters and its lands. We honor their long history and welcoming others to this beautiful territory. Our aim to uphold and lift their voices and values as our host nation. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Parsons that the agenda as prepared for the council meeting of June 26, 2023 be approved.
Questions or comments from council? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried with none opposed. Disclosure of pecuniary interests and the general nature thereof. Seeing none. Adoption of council minutes of previous meeting. Deputy Mayor.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Spencer, that the council meeting minutes dated June 14, 2023 be approved.
Thank you. Errors, omissions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Now we'll welcome Sergeant Rob Griffin, Municipal Policing Specialist, West Region, Ontario Provincial Police, regarding the enhancement process. Welcome.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me. Mayor, Council, it was a great drive down today. I came up from Aurelia, the Municipal Policing Bureau at headquarters and for Aurelia OPP. I came down today to talk about officer enhancement process. I was talking to the detachment commander and the operations manager, and we thought it'd be really worthwhile to make the trip and just talk about what an enhancement is and what type of enhancements are out there, as well what benefits come from an enhancement. So there we go. So overview, I'm going to keep this short today. The most important slide, I'll just tell you right up front, is going to be the last slide. It's my contact information. So this is more of an introduction to go through this whole thing. It's going to take a lot longer than what we have here tonight. So this is going to be a quick overview. And I really encourage everyone to use this presentation as more of a resource. I've got some numbers and stuff in here that will give you an idea of what these types of things cost. And again, those costs are, I guess you say, estimates, because they are 2023 estimates, but depending on the area, the municipality, it can change a little bit. But I'm more than happy if you were to move forward with something like this, I could supply a proper estimate for you. So I'm just going to go over this. This is the overview. I'm going to go over types of enhancements that are available. A brief touch on enhancement costs. What happens if you decide you don't want an enhancement? So the enhancement termination policy, and then we'll have any questions that anyone has. So enhancement options. So just out the door here to talk right away about enhancements. We do have a moratorium on officer enhancements at this time, which means no uniform positions are available for enhancements, but that doesn't mean there isn't other enhancements. The reason for the, I guess you say, temporary moratorium on officer enhancements is we are currently recruiting and trying to enhance our frontline positions. So we're really trying to focus on all of our new hires and staffing for the front line. So right now we have a staff delivery model that we're trying to achieve. And once that's there, then we will once again open up that officer enhancement program. So dedicated positions that are out there, most common I find in the province is traffic officers. A lot of people want extra traffic enforcement. Probably one of the number one priorities in Ontario across the board is traffic enforcement and slowing the roadways down. We also have things like school resource officers, detachment administration, community officers, and a big thing right now is collision reporting clerks. A lot of municipalities have chosen to move to a collision reporting center, which frees up frontline officer time, and it just helps keeping officers on the road and answering calls instead of dealing with minor collisions. You can see there up to the right there, I took that photo It's a LiDAR there with a speed of 205 kilometers in a 40-kilometer safety zone. I took that picture when I did a speed initiative about 6 years ago. So, traffic, I understand how that's a big one. That's why I put it as number one. But it's moving forward here. I took an example of a civilian enhancement cost for a collision reporting center. This is something that's popular throughout the province right now, opening these collision reporting centers. They're all close and similar when we look at the cost for civilian enhancements when it comes to detachment operation clerks or detachment operation clerks, which I can explain the difference of in a moment. But you can see there's an initial startup cost for a full-time employee where you see FT. The numbers are kind of small, so I'm not going to get right into the whole numbers again. You can use this as a resource to kind of get an idea. But you'll see total salaries and benefits is $71,000 for a civilian employee in 2023 for collision reporting clerk. You'll see down there's also a total other direct operating expenses. What that basically means is, computers, cell phones, anything that would be needed to get that employee on the ground running. So this is a summary of estimates for the positions that are available. What I did was I outlined in red what does not have a moratorium on it. So you have obviously the top 4 uniform positions, and then you'll see civilian court officer, and then down part-time civilian court officers, and then detachment admin, collision reporting clerks, detachment operation clerks. A really popular detachment operation clerk position would be someone that would come in and help with court paperwork, somebody that would come in and help with the officers when they make an arrest. They can help do the briefs that are required for court. So it actually helps the officer get back out on the road quicker. So things like that, if someone was, say, looking for more enforcement or for officers to be out on the road more, instead of them doing their paperwork, you would have a detachment operation clerk out and assisting with doing all the paperwork that's required for an officer on their day-to-day. So last slide, most important slide, my contact information. Again, I kept this short today, just for the fact that there is a lot of detail when it comes into explaining what each position would be for Tillsonburg. It was hard to kind of make a made in Tillsonburg presentation tonight to see exactly what the need of council was and what they were looking for as far as a enhancement. However, my contact's up there. Unfortunately, I've got a bar across the bottom. You can't see it, but my phone number is on there underneath where there's a red circle. So when that bar goes away, my name and my cell number are under that. So anyone on council is more than welcome to call me at any time. I know sometimes when you call general headquarters, it can be hard to get through the prompts and actually speak to somebody. That's my direct line on there. So if there was a quick question that you needed answered, or something that you wanted to cost out or further understand, please feel free to call me, or you can also go through the detachment as well. Is there any questions from anyone?
Council Parsons.
Thank you for your presentation, Sergeant. In terms of the collision reporting center, could you just outline the process right now in Tillsonburg for this detachment? If someone has a minor collision, do they go to that detachment? I see in your slides that there is a reporting center in Norfolk County. Is that an option where people in Tillsonburg had a collision could go to Norfolk, or what is the process? If you could outline that, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question. The process right now in Tillsonburg, obviously, I don't work at detachment, but from my understanding, officers currently right now are responding to minor collisions, and that there isn't a collision reporting center structure right now. However, you could liaise with the detachment and see if the feasibility of that works, or if what they have in place right now works. Again, this is a generic presentation to see what would help your officers here in Tillsonburg be more effective or more productive by having enhancements help them get through their day and get their paperwork done. So a collision reporting center is one option for that type of thing, but it might not be a Tillsonburg need, if that makes any sense.
Madam Mayor, but it's an option because it is in the slide for someone in Tillsonburg to go to Norfolk. Does that exist or not?
It does not, because when you have a traffic accident, you have to report it in the jurisdiction which it occurs. So, yeah, no problem.
Counselor Parker.
Through you, Mayor Gilvezi. First off, thanks for your presentation tonight. I've got a couple questions. The first is the timeline on the staffing improvements. When you guys plan to reach your peak levels that you can lift this moratorium that is on hiring more officers. And I guess that question is because Tillsonburg's experienced exponential growth over the last 5 years. And from my understanding, we haven't added an officer in 10. So I think that that's something that the public would like to see. So just a timeline along those premises where we can actually start that process. And then the second question would be, I guess, how much time does it actually free up from our current officers if we were to go down the road of having a collision reporting clerk? Do you have that data available, or is it would a further review be needed for that?
Okay, two good questions. I'm just going to answer one at a time. So I'll answer the second question first. Basically, you're right. How much time would that free up for a Tillsonburg officer? And I don't know that because when I brought the collision reporting center, I guess you could say example forward, it wasn't specifically marked towards Tillsonburg. If the accident levels weren't very high here in Tillsonburg, maybe it is feasible just to use the frontline officer to do those calls. However, maybe more appropriate would be a detachment operating clerk who would come in and help with paperwork, or somebody would help with duties at the station. Maybe that's more appropriate for Tillsonburg. The detachment commander and operations manager, it'd be great to sit with them and go through what would be the most cost-effective thing that could be done to help the municipality. And I'm sorry, the first question again about staff delivery, I believe your question was, when is that going to be achieved? At this time, I'm not sure. There is a staff delivery unit that has been put together, on a pursuit for excellence. We always go over multiple reviews every year of things that the OPP can do better and things that we can improve on. Staffing has always come up as one of the things. So that's something we're working at. I don't know if you've seen in the news, but the provincial government has helped us by reducing things for new applicants. They're helping out with paying for the Ontario Police College. There's many efforts happening. We're doing the fourth class this year instead of 3 classes at the Ontario Police College. So we're hoping that we can fill every one of those classes and meet that objective sooner than later.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? Just a couple. I had just a couple. So if the town were to look at hiring a full-time uniformed officer with maybe traffic being part of the role, is there like any way that the contract's flexible? Like say that the town wanted them to say do traffic patrol, like say 2 days a week, foot patrol, maybe in the downtown core 2 days a week. Like is that a flexible contract, or is it just like one way or the other?
That's more of an operational decision by the detachment. If you have a dedicated officer for traffic, that would be something that the detachment could work through with the municipality if that were the case.
Okay, and then secondly, I think you kind of alluded to it, but how do we get an assessment here to determine exactly what it is we do need?
Sorry, Mayor, that would be a meet with the detachment commander and operations manager, Inspector Heimers. I know that he wanted to be here tonight for me coming down, but I believe he's at a police services board meeting as well. But the operations manager, Staff Sergeant Ormsby, she could meet with council as well and make a discussion and have a discussion about what the need of the detachment is and where they could see an improvement.
I think from a political perspective, I think we all get a lot of traffic complaints here, like on a daily basis. So, in a growing town, and it's just, it seems to be nonstop. So that was, I think, the premises, and Councillor Parker and I had put a resolution on quite some time ago, looking at this, but recognizing from a municipal end that nothing can be done until we have something in a budget for consideration. So that's the other thing. So. I guess with regards to timelines, like really taking a look at what the town may need, but this would also have to form part of our budget process, which starts in November for 2024. So thank you very much. Does council have any other questions? Councillor Parker.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Grossart. The council receives the presentation from Sergeant Rob Griffin as information.
Any further comments from council? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, that would be carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, everyone.
We've got your contact information.
Thank you.
Next, we're moving into a planning meeting. So we will move to a public meeting portion of our meeting. This is a public meeting held under the Planning Act for the purpose of hearing zone change applications ZN 23-01. This process allows any person in attendance with the opportunity to make a presentation to council. To start, the planner, Laurel Davy Snyder, will give an overview of the zone change application. Welcome, Laurel.
Thank you very much, Mayor Galvezi, members of council, members of staff, members of the audience. I'm pleased to be here. Present zone change application Z2301 97 North Street West in Tillsonburg. So the proposal is to rezone a portion of the subject property from passive use open space OS1 to minor institutional IN1 to recognize and preserve an existing First Nations cemetery. No development will occur on these lands. And in terms of stewardship and maintenance, there's a site disposition agreement between Southside Construction Management Limited, First Nations communities, and the town of Tillsonburg. The town will have ownership of the property moving forward. Here's a location map illustrating within the subject property. So here's 97 North Street West here, the blue line, and the red rectangle outlines the location of the lands proposed to be rezoned from passive use open space to minor institutional. In terms of process and comments, we conducted our normal agency circulation. There were no concerns. Support received from Tillsonburg Chamber of Commerce. Public notice was issued on May 16th, 2023, and to date, there have been no comments. Staff is recommending approval of this proposed zone change for the following reasons. It's consistent with policies in the provincial policy statement, especially regarding sustaining healthy, livable, and safe communities, conserving archaeological resources. And in terms of the official plan, it's in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan regarding, again, conserving archaeological resources and enhancing them where possible. Cemeteries are permitted as an ancillary use within residential area designations. And there is compatible transition between the residential and non-residential land. So between the cemetery use and the residential uses in this area. In terms of the zoning bylaw, a cemetery is a permitted use in the minor institutional zone. So that does conclude my presentation. I'm happy to answer comments. Thank you.
Council have any questions? So with this designation, like, will this be sectioned off or will it be open for, like, and I know that there's like parkland dedication and things like that. Will this be green space that's usable or not?
This will not be usable by the general public. There will be measures taken to ensure that it is cordoned off. I'm not sure of the exact details. Perhaps the applicant can provide more details. In the site disposition agreement, there will be details about how it will be sectioned off from the general public.
Okay, thank you. So at this point in the process, there's an opportunity for the public, applicant, or agent to speak in favor of the application. Is there anyone here in the audience? I believe that we do have the agent for the applicant, Casey Kolchucky, online. Am I correct? Do we have?
That is correct.
I'll open the floor to you. Do you have any comments to make?
First, foremost, good evening. Thank you to Laurel for her work on this application to date. We've read through her report and are in agreement with the recommendation for approval. Just on that one point to you, Mayor Galvezi, just with regards to the use of this land. some minor landscaping will be proposed to buffer the burial grounds to assist in screening them, kind of a privacy agreement between ourselves and the First Nations group. But there will be kind of delineations of fencing and pathways to make sure that those burial plots are not disturbed by the general public.
Thank you. Does council have any questions for the applicant? Seeing none, is there anyone present, both in person or virtually, that would like to speak in opposition to this application? I am seeing none. Please note that if anyone who appeals this decision has not provided council with oral or written submissions at the public meeting, then the local planning appeal tribunal has the power to dismiss the appeal. Are there any further comments or questions from council members? Seeing none, Councillor Parsons.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's moved by Parsons, seconded by Bears. The council approved the zone change application submitted by Southside Construction Management Limited, where the lands described as Part Lot 8, Concession 11, Durham, Town of Tillsonburg, are to be rezoned from passive open space zone OS1 to minor institutional zone IN1 to recognize and preserve an existing First Nation cemetery registered under the Funeral, Burial, and Cremation Services Act. I'd like to speak to that, Madam Mayor, please. Yeah, just to say that, it was just last week that I attended the national, just get the name right here, the National People's, excuse me, I don't have the title of that, just National Indigenous Peoples Day is what it was. We're hosted by the Tillsonburg Historical Society. And it was very interesting. We had a speaker there by the name of a local speaker, Dr. Pankratz, that talked a lot about the contribution of First Nations over the many years of military service to the government of Canada to our country. I received an email today from Laurel Beach, and I'd just like to maybe cite a passage that she gave, that she visited the digs of Tillsonburg Native Village, which started in 2008, about the time they were developing the soccer fields there. Read some archaeological reports and attended Peter Timmons' lecture this past spring. I tried imagining what the village would have looked like with 16 longhouses over 44 acres they excavated, that some longhouses were smaller and I think school bus size. And then there were some large houses that housed a number of families. So I learned on that day that there were excavation of footings for some 14 longhouses right there where the soccer park is. And now we have learned near the area of this new subdivision. And so I think it's really wonderful that we are preserving this history. We do read the land acknowledgement at the start of every council meeting. It's important to recognize the First Nations people. And so I just wanted to add, and I appreciate our historian, Laura Beachy, writing quite a lengthy article. And I think it's important for all people in Tillsonburg and our school children to understand our heritage. This goes back 600 to 700 years ago. And so I'm very pleased that the excavation or the subdivision is recognized this. The town of Tillsonburg is going to hold this land in respect of the First Nations. And I'm in favor of the report. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Next, we move to a zone change application. Well, this is removing a holding provision, and it's application zone change ZN 7-2302 97 North Street West. And again, Laurel, it's all yours.
Great, thank you. As Mayor Gavesi said, this is zone change application 7-2302, same property, 97 North Street West, Tillsonburg. The proposal is to remove the holding provisions from 37 lots for single detached dwellings and 2 blocks for medium density residential development to allow for the issuance of building permits. This is a site again. So if you look at what's outlined in the blue, this is the area we're looking at phase one for removing the holding provisions. That's the proposed zone change application. So in terms of agency circulation, there were no concerns. There is adequate water and wastewater capacity to service the proposed development. And for lifting a holding provision, public notice is not required. The purpose of a holding provision is to ensure that all appropriate development agreements are in place, easements are provided, payment for servicing is provided. In this case, it was used to ensure, as I mentioned, that adequate water and wastewater capacity was assigned to this development prior to construction. So as I mentioned, there are no concerns with that. So we're recommending approval for the following reasons. It's consistent with our provincial policy statement, stating that sustaining healthy, livable, and safe communities as a priority. We provide and accommodate for appropriate range of residential uses in our communities, and we do focus our growth in settlement areas. In terms of our official plan, it's in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan. So we're promoting the accommodation of present and future demand for housing in Tillsonburg through the efficient use of vacant residential land. That concludes my very brief presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Parker.
Through you, Mayor Gilvezi to Laurel. Thanks for the presentation. Page 41 in our agenda, process and comments, agency circulation, says that there's adequate water and wastewater capacity to service proposed developments. We had recently 3 weeks of dry weather and got put into a level 2 water restriction. We haven't heard anything about that being lifted. How confident are we that there is actually adequate water and wastewater capacity to service our proposed developments? Because right now I'm concerned.
What I'm aware of is that the service agreements, the contracts have been signed, and both Public Works at the county and engineering at Tillsonburg have agreed that adequate servicing has been provided for this residential subdivision, which to me is the approval that is required for lifting this holding provision.
Follow up. So by adding more houses, we're already in a level 2 water restriction. How can we guarantee that there's enough for the public? The public needs to be put at ease. Do we have any idea when level 2 watering restrictions will be lifted?
I don't at this point. I can take that back and ask my colleagues at the county to provide more information. I think that's appropriate at this point that I do that.
Thank you.
Council, I have a question. It is regards to the water because I know that it was reviewed and an email went out last Thursday that the town of Tillsonburg remains in the level 2 conservation and that the town had to remain at a stable capacity for 10 days and that it's been 10 days. Maybe not 10 working days, but we haven't heard anything back. I would like to, in the first page of the report, which is found on page 32 of the agenda, it says planning staff are recommending approval of the application as sufficient water. I want a definition on what sufficient means. Are we talking about, brushing teeth, washing hair, or are we talking about kids being able to run out underneath sprinklers on the lawn? Because I think that there is a difference between having enough water versus sufficient water.
I don't have a definition for you this evening. Perhaps my colleague Jonathan Graham can provide further information on that, but I will have to consult with my colleagues at the county. I think the other thing to think about as well is the timing between. I'm not saying that the water is not serious at all. The timing between when construction actually happens and now there will be a lag time. I'm not saying that shouldn't be addressed and looked into at all. I'm just putting that out there in terms of timing. So you would like clarification on what sufficient water means and also the level 2 when that will be addressed.
I will say, I am going to say that I sent a fulsome email in more than 2 weeks ago asking about water capacity, if there's a sufficient amount of water to address, housing applications that were approved. And I have not received a reply. So this is a concern. I'm getting calls about this every single day. And quite frankly, we haven't had that hot of weather. We've had 3 hot days out of the last 15. We did 2 inches of rain. I think from yesterday, we got another 6/10. It's not like we're in a dire drought situation that we were facing when this first went on. So, rightly so. I think that this needs to be addressed. We need some answers. Thank you. Does council have any further questions? Councillor Spencer?
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Luciani, that council approves the zone change application submitted by Southside Construction Management for lands legally described as part of Lot 8, Concession 11 Durham in the town of Tillsonburg to remove the holding provisions from the lands as identified as on plates 1 and 2 of report number CP 2023-195.
Thank you. Does council have any further questions? Jonathan, did you have any comments with regards to maybe you know something about the water that we don't?
Through you, Madam Mayor, unfortunately, the information that you have is the same information that I've either shared to you or am missing. I do have a meeting tomorrow with the county, and I'll make note to bring this issue up and possibly pushing for a report from county council or from the county engineer to us to specifically address some of these constraints or rumors as they would be. So more information to come.
Thank you. Council have any further questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next, I'd like to invite Rosemary Dean. Thank you, Laurel. From the Tillsonburg Tri-County Agricultural Society regarding in-kind use of grounds at Memorial Park.
Good evening, Mayor Galvezi and Council. We are here again at the table, as we are every year, just requesting your consideration to give us the grounds in kind at the fairgrounds to hold our 169th annual fair. We're looking at also, we have requested in the past to use the Lions Auditorium to host the baby show from 9 a.m. till noon. And also the outdoor rink to host our Special Olympics versus First Responder basketball tournament. And that the grounds would be used from August 13th to the 21st. So having said that, on the 13th, as many of you know, over several decades, our Midway pulls in on the Sunday of the fair, the week of the fair, to start bringing the equipment in. And then a Monday, everything starts to be assembled for the gates to open on Friday. So at this time, we're just looking to see if council would consider our request to provide this to us in kind.
Does council have any questions for Rosemary? No? Seeing none, Councillor Rosa.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Deputy Mayor Barris, that council received a delegation from Rosemary Dean. Thank you.
May I add something to a seconder to that, providing the mover approves that council receives a delegation from Rosemary Dean and permission be granted as requested.
Councillor Rosa, you're fine with that? Councillor Parker?
Through you, Mayor Galvezi, to Director Columbus. Do we know what the total cost of that in-kind donation would be?
Through you, Mayor Galvezi, through to Council Parker. The request that I received information was for the auditorium to be in kind, similar to last year's request, $324 plus HST. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have we're doing a number of these. Do we have a policy in this regard? Like, I don't believe we do, but is this something that we're looking at potentially for 2024?
Yes, Mayor Galvezi, the Clerk's Department and Recreation have been speaking about this. We also had been working previously with Renato when he was in his role, and now working with Sheena to track it so that we can come back at budget time for 2024 and show the numbers of what's been donated in kind and to create a policy around that. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Any further questions from council? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, carried.
Once again, we'd like to thank you for your support.
Good luck. Next, we have a delegation, Kirby Heckford and Mr. Pat Carroll, request for parkland in the Bridges Golf Course development. Welcome.
Madam Mayor, member of the council, town staff, and the general public. My name is Kirby Heckford, and I'm the owner of Tillsonburg Developments, and we're the developer at the Bridges. I'm here with a concern with my allocation for parkland and the town. How it's done is, you know, how the town gets an appraisal, it comes in, and then you pay 5%. So the first appraisal came in at $5.4 million for open space, and reviewing it, it had a bunch of holes in it. And actually, one of them mentioned that it had a single family house on the northeast corner, which doesn't exist. There's a few other things. So through Mayor Galvezi and Eric Gilbert, the county planner, it told me to get a second one. The second appraisal came in at 3.2 million. So that's a 2.2 million difference. So at 5%, you're talking about 270,000 versus 160,000. So going on to that, the second point that comes into play while we were doing this subdivision, the town, the previous mayor wanted the toboggan hill. We had a toboggan hill there for years. And so we had the golf course group had a lease or agreement with them. And so anyhow, we put this toboggan hill in. It cost me $95,000 plus the land that I gave up. So I probably gave up 2 lots. So a lot of people here, and I'm not against you, Jonathan or Julie. You came in at the end here and you're only doing your job. So I'm not pointing this at you guys, and appreciate that you're just doing your job. So I want to turn it over here because Pat Carroll has some history here on this project. He's been involved from the beginning, and you know, we've tied the Carroll Trail through it and all that sort of stuff. And a lot of money has been donated from our group of guys that are involved with this project. So I'd like to have Pat come up and go over that.
Madam Mayor, members of council, staff, and general public. My name is Pat Carroll, and I've served the town of Tillsonburg for 42 years as a member of the Kinsman Club of Tillsonburg. As a young boy over 60 years ago, I, along with my neighborhood friends, crossed the Baldwin Street swing bridge to access the tobogganing hill at the Tillsonburg Golf and Country Club. Over the years, we all got our bumps and scrapes, and there was the odd hospital visit, including my own daughter, some 30 years later. There are a few people in the room who also remember the time when there was no tobogganing at the golf course, as the town was being sued by an individual. Many people were up in arms when this recreation was taken away. In 2007, my wife Liz and I anonymously donated $500,000 of matching funds, and another $540,000 was raised in just 6 weeks for the construction of what would be the Carroll Trail. It's a 5-kilometer trail that meanders through the new bridges at Tillsonburg expansion to 18 holes, which was completed in 2009. In 2011, we also consolidated the debt for the golf course so that the exchange and purchase of land could be facilitated with the town. Unfortunately, the lingering effects of the 2008 global financial crisis caught up with the underfunded golf course expansion. And in 2013, we were forced to foreclose on the shareholder-operated course for non-payment. We then bought out the first mortgage holder and briefly took over the course to ensure that it did not fall into the hands of someone outside the town with other intentions. In the spring of 2014, a few other like-minded people
joined me to take over the operations of the bridges at Tillsonburg. Then after years of injecting more monies into the operations, we approached TDI to help us stop the bleeding and develop housing around the modified 12-hole golf course to make the operation viable. I explained to TDI that their plan would not likely be accepted by council and the residents of the town if there was not a tobogganing hill for public recreation to be maintained. TDI reduced the number of lots to provide a new and safer tobogganing recreation area. It should be noted that it was I, along with former Mayor Mona, that initiated the tobogganing agreement that exists today. Its intent was for the safety of patrons. Encouraging the parking of cars at the bridges facility where the patrons could safely walk to the hill. This will now be enhanced with the reconstruction of Clubhouse Way. On November 10th, 2021, I was part of the presentation to council. I pledged to the town that the tobogganing facility would be incorporated into the TDI plan. There are many new faces on town staff that are not aware of the history of this recreational facility, and I hope this summary has enlightened them. My partners and I have donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to facilities all over the town. The town is going to benefit significantly from the taxes collected on the new homes. Additional costs inflicted on the project will affect each of us personally, and I can tell you the issue leaves a sour taste in all of our mouths. If the town does not wish to recognize the recreational facility that we have built into the project for the enjoyment of its residents, then the Bridges is prepared to cancel the tobogganing agreement, but only at the request of the town. Thank you for your time to listen to our position on this matter.
Thank you. You can both stay up there if you want. I'm going to open the floor up to council. Any questions? Thank you, gentlemen. I can say that your portrayal of what happened in the past and regarding a former mayor, and I know to me it does appear accurate because that is essentially what I was told in the past. The Toboggan Hill was extremely important to the community with regards to this development. So I'm just making council aware that from my understanding, this is a very accurate portrayal of the agreement that was made.
One other thing, Madam Mayor, we took out the steepness. We all had toboggan here. We all knew how unsafe it was for years. And when I went to CJDL, I said, guys, we got to make this safer. We can't have accidents. We can't have people suing us. And I think we've done an excellent job by putting it in. And I would hate, we went on good faith with the other mayor and, we did our end of it. We kept to our bargain. And that's all I got to say. I don't really want to take it out of there. Pat doesn't want to take it out of there, but we got to come to some sort of agreement here.
Where exactly is the location of the
We put it very
sloped toboggan hill?
What we did was like Pat was explaining, we want everybody to come up the new Clubhouse Way off John Pound Road, and it's right at the end of the parking lot. So we stayed away from Baldwin Place because I live up there. I'm surprised nobody ever got killed there. Kids getting all excited to get out of the car and boom, somebody get hit. And I wanted them out of there when I was putting this subdivision together. I wanted to flush them to the other side where it's way safer and there's lots of parking. The hill itself is, Madam Mayor, if you were there last week at the Chamber of Commerce, the new hole number 1 tee box and the practice green, it's right behind that, adjacent to that, sliding down the hill. And they can't get into the retaining pond because there's going to be a roadway in between there. And so the intent, no doubt that there will be kids that can walk from a subdivision. They'll be able to walk down Green Hills Boulevard, Green Hills Road, and walk across the emergency road to get to the thing, but we're not encouraging parking on residential streets where they got people's driveways can get blocked and that we're hoping that was the intent with Mayor Molnar and I years ago. I said, somebody's going to get hurt. We were never successful in getting them off of Baldwin, but now with the new development, and I dare say there's not likely to be parking on Baldwin adjacent to Green Hills anyway. So, but the kids may still walk down the street and cross and walk there, but parents will drive around, come up. The restaurant will probably be open. There could be hot dogs, hot chocolate, that kind of stuff.
Thank you, Councillor Parker.
Through you, Mayor Galvezi. You mentioned that there'd be a road down at the bottom of the hill. Is there going to be curbing and such on that road? Just wondering, because it's at the base of the hill, right? So looking safety wise.
No, it's not. There's no curbing in that. It's basically a road. So the town has full access to that swim pond. That's all it is. Now, what we'll probably end up doing, if it is an issue, we'll put a snow fence up so that it still allows the town to get down there and access that pond 24/7.
Yeah.
So
The arrangement we had with the town in the past is Parks and Rec would show up with all their snow fencing and T-bars, and our superintendent would work with them. They always made a corridor from Baldwin over to the hill, and because we have to still protect our assets like the T-blocks and the green. So it's no big deal to put a catch fence down at the bottom across there but they'll slide down and go up a hill and be.
yeah, it's kind of like a land out area. It'll slow them down. They will never reach we kept it as steep as we used to have it. They might have.
Deputy Mayor and then Councillor Parsons.
I just thank you through you, Mayor. I just want to say, Pat, the number of years, I don't think there's a year gone by that you haven't done something for this town. And don't think it's not noticed. It certainly is. And I think between you and the Kinsman Club and other organizations, and there's some very kind people out there, and you're certainly on the list. And thank you for that. So I think that has to be said. But I do have a question. What exactly is the ask here? From what I'm understanding, there's a cash in lieu requirement of 160,000 roughly or more. And you're asking that be waived, but you're also giving 2 lots to the town for the parkland. Am I correct?
No, that's not it. That's not it. What I'm basically asking for is to use the lower appraisal to account us the $95,000 and we pay the difference. I just wanted to let you know that I've got more than 95,000 because I've given up that land, meaning I can't produce other lots with it but I can't turn that land over to you because it's part of the subdivision. But I just know that there's a value there that is lost.
But you want to retain the ownership of the land.
The land has to be part of us because it's part of it, but we've put the hill on that.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
So I'm basically asking you to use the 160, the lower value, the 3.2 at 5%.
Right.
Then give us the $95,000 that we've got allocated towards it, and we pay the difference.
I understand. Thank you.
Okay, but
That's clear now.
okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, thank you to both speakers, to Pat and Kirby. And I agree with Councillor Bears. All the contributions both you gentlemen have given the community. I probably have more questions, and I am confused to a great extent. I did look at the site last week while I was at the golf course with the Chamber of Commerce. I looked at the sketches, the diagrams. I see the meandering road that comes through the toboggan area. I'm concerned about safety. I've heard Mr. Carroll say it will be safe, but I really would like to understand how it's going to be safe with that pond there and a road and moving vehicles. So I need to understand that better. I'm concerned about it. I have a feeling that through this process, we're going to end up, the town of Tillsonburg will own that as parkland. So we will own a toboggan hill, I believe. And I'm concerned about the liability that may come with that. Maybe I'm wrong, that we won't own that. It'll be owned by someone else.
It's owned by the golf course itself because it's part of the golf course.
Good.
But it's there. And then what we did before was had an agreement with the town. And I think you guys have seen that agreement.
Well, not being, if I may continue, Madam Mayor, just hold it for a second. Not being part of the original council, I wouldn't have seen that agreement till now, but that's good that the town doesn't
The
own.
town had an agreement. It was instilled in, I think, 2016. I think Josh sent it out to everybody. It is, okay.
So, Madam Mayor, I want to continue for a moment. I haven't seen the agreement, but that is a concern that I still have. I'm not a fan of cash in lieu of any parks at all, or any development, I should say. But I appreciate the proximity to our trails, and I think this is unique, and so therefore I can live with that. But overall, I guess I'm really concerned about the difference in the $3.2 million your appraisal. The town had an independent appraisal, 5.4 million. There's a difference. And I'm not sure if we've heard from our own staff, but we may need to, I would like to have a better opinion, Madam Mayor, from our own staff at some point. And perhaps with that, I would recommend we, if it's possible, to defer this until staff can report back. Thank you.
Sorry, if I just could, through the mayor, your procedural bylaw doesn't allow for debate on delegations. So my suggestion would be that it sounds like you want information from staff. So one of the items that's allowed or permitted within that process within your procedural bylaw is to refer this to staff or report back to council.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm correct. Thank you.
Councillor Spencer.
Would it be possible to find out in that report?
Okay, so we have a delegation that's in front of us. So once I open up the floor, this is questions to the delegation. Once I open up the floor, I will turn it over to Councillor Parker, who has a resolution. Once Councillor Parker puts the resolution on the floor, then you can ask questions regarding to what you may require in the future. Okay? Does that clear it up? And I'm correct? So any other questions to the delegation? Seeing none, Councillor Parker.
I'm going to read an amended resolution with the seconder's permission. I'll ask afterwards. I've got moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Parsons. The council receives the delegation from Kirby Heckford as information, and that council defers this decision until a report in regards to park space, or sorry, options available to include this as park space, options for safety, and also in any changes to the town insurance be made available. And I'd like to speak to that. Mayor Galvezi, obviously this is, it's disappointing to see that we've got to this point, but at the same time, I'm glad that you guys have had the opportunity to put the toboggan hill in there. But I think, as it's been alluded to, there could be some safety issues with heading towards the stormwater management pond. I know I was over there on Saturday and kind of took a look at it. And then also, I think that with that, there comes changes to our insurance. And I think that there could be liability issues if we don't get a review done of that, because I think that we're changing locations, we're changing steepness, we're changing where everybody's going into. So I think that for council to be able to make a decision, that we need to see a report from staff.
Okay, does the seconder agree with that motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Now, any further questions or comments regarding the motion? So we're looking for a report regarding whether that can be included into the parkland dedication for the subdivision, as well as looking into the liability for the toboggan hill. Correct? Councillor Rosart?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to, I guess I don't know who, to the director, I guess, would this hold up the process of the land that the people are looking at as well, and how long would it hold them up for?
I'd have to seek through Madam Mayor to Councillor Rosehart. I'd have to seek a legal opinion on finalizing the plan of subdivision. Generally, this would be a noteworthy item within the plan of subdivision agreement itself, and that's where we're at right now in the stages of. So my request to our lawyer would be if we can have a second agreement to tackle parkland dedication, but I'd have to go defer to them. I do have a meeting with them this week, so this is good timing. and I can bring it up appropriately. So there, just to clarify, there would be one plan of subdivision if everything worked out swimmingly, one plan of subdivision agreement, a separate agreement, maybe a possible schedule. And then there's this lease agreement as well, that the town is party to, relevant right to the Toboggan Hill itself. So we'd have to kind of evaluate all three approaches.
And just to follow up, Madam Mayor, so would there be a cost to the applicant as well?
Certainly in our standard wording of our clauses is that these anomalies are borne by the developer, so development pays for development. Otherwise, we can identify that through the report or would be borne by the tax base.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Through Madam Mayor to, I guess to Jonathan, dealing with development charges and cash and lieu development. I guess I'm just looking at and thinking about as far as what's already been donated and dealt with by the developer. If we were looking at other subdivisions and somebody said they were going to supply trail use, would that suffice for that portion of what's required? Similarly to a toboggan hill.
Traditionally, through your worship to the councillor, traditionally parkland dedication or parkland meets AODA standards, which means it's fully accessible for everyone's use. Unfortunately, Toboggan Hill doesn't really fit that category nicely. We have to be very careful with circumventing the policy that's in place for our parkland dedication and setting precedents. So it might be a standalone agreement addressing this issue so that we're not circumventing the policy, but rather coming to a negotiated standard. But again, it's fraught with making sure that we've done that properly, and I'll have to seek legal counsel to make sure that it's appropriately. But right now we have a policy in place, barring that the assessed value is of concern. So we'll have to figure out how we're going to settle that as well. So it might be getting a third assessment so that we can split the difference. But there is market value driven by that conversation, and the market value might demonstrate that it has gone up from the last time it was done. So we'll have to kind of stick handle it appropriately, to say the least.
Okay, thank you. So I would encourage though that we get that legal interpretation as soon as possible, like so that we're not holding anything up. Time is money. I get that. So you said that you'll get on that this week and then potentially we can do these separately from what I'm understanding. Okay. All right. Any further questions from council? Councilor Rosser.
Just a question. Is this going to come back to council or is this going to be dealt with off? Like how is it will be dealt with, Madam Mayor?
Through you, the Madam Mayor, to the councillor, I would hope that this will fall in front of council because I don't want to circumvent the policy that's put in place. And the motion is that a report be brought back to council. So it will be brought back to council.
But just to clarify, if it can be separated, like if the lawyer advises that it can be separated, the portion that's coming back to council is regarding the toboggan area as parkland dedication. It does not involve the plan of subdivision, correct?
If I can get it through that way, I will certainly process that way. So the best way of looking at it is the parkland discussion will be brought back to council.
I think that's what you were questioning. Okay, perfect. Okay, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, and that's carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we are discussing the Recreation and Sports Advisory Committee recommendations, Sports Hall of Fame. Are there, Andrea, I guess the report was from Andrea. So Julie, did you have any comments regarding the report?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to council. I believe Council Parker wanted to speak to this as he sits on that committee.
The applications, I believe we received 9 applications in total, wide ranging sports achievements, and everybody should be proud of their accomplishments. There are 3 people that were selected. If anybody wants any more information on those individuals, I'll be glad to supply it. I think that we haven't decided on a date for the actual ceremony to be held, but I believe it will be probably May of next year, just based on the people that have been elected and their availability. So those conversations will be happening with them to make sure that dates work for everybody. So it was, I'd like to thank the committee for their help as well, because without them, these decisions wouldn't have been came to. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Any comments? Councillor Parsons?
Madam Mayor, just a slight correction on page 55 of the report. The recommendation of Jeff Bess. We just need to correct his spelling of his name to B-E-S on his surname, please. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Well, I just have a question through you to Councillor Parker. A couple of questions, really. Now, just to be clear, this is where we put the plaques on the wall for the double off the parking lot, the double doors, and they're on both sides of the wall in the hallway. So that's, and I did speak with you prior to the meeting about one of these names, Lloyd Andrews. And I didn't recognize that name, and you brought it to my attention. I wonder if you'd share with the rest of the council and the people in the gallery and the people of the public who Lloyd Andrews is, please.
Absolutely. So yes, this is the Hall of Fame is the entrance at where you go in to enter into the Memorial Arena. So plaques will be put up there. And as for your question about Lloyd Andrews is actually the first known person from the town of Tillsonburg to win the Stanley Cup. He won the Stanley Cup back in 1921. He also has there's a couple other claims to fame. Andrews Crossing is actually named after Lloyd Andrews. The Hey-Ho team actually came up with that name after researching at the museum for quite some time. And he also scored 27 goals in one game of junior B hockey when he was playing. His team scored 45 goals in that game, and he had 27 of them. So there's a few stats regarding him. So, and his Stanley Cup win was in 1921 with the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Is that the last time they won? I couldn't resist, sorry.
I'm old, but I'm not that old. Would you like me to read the resolution? Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Rosehart, that the report titled Recreation and Sports Advisory Committee Recommendations for the Sports Hall of Fame be received as information, and the council approved the recommendation of the Recreation and Sports Advisory Committee as follows: that the Recreation and Sports Advisory Committee recommend that the following individuals be inducted to the Hall of Fame. First being Dan Sanders, a community builder, Jeff Bess, spelled with one S, individual athlete, and Lloyd Andrews, individual athlete.
Thank you very much. Any questions, comments? All those in favor? Opposed, and that's carried. Now we're moving over to financial results. For the first quarter, consolidating operating results. Sheena, do you have any highlights to add?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No highlights to add, just to introduce that these are the first quarter operating results. Each department has presented their operating results and updated business plans to date to the end of Q1, so March of 2023, and are available to answer any questions.
Okay, so does council have any questions? And this is regarding the first quarter consolidated results. If you have questions regarding individual departments, that will be in the next section. So, Councillor Luciani.
Yeah, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Spencer that the report titled 2023 first quarter consolidated operating results be received as information.
Thank you very much. Any further questions, comments? All those in favor? Opposed, and that's carried. Next, we move to the department results. So we've got corporate services. I'm not going to list them all because Councillor Parker is going to read them all. First, I'll open up the floor regarding questions. Does anyone have any questions? One thing that I can inform the public is that the building department has returned to pre-pandemic levels. There was just off the top of my head, around 7 million. Whereas last year in the first quarter, I believe we were over 21 million. So it's certainly slowed, and we're seeing levels back to, I guess, what we had seen in the past. So any further questions? If not, Councillor Parker.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Rosehart, that the following reports be received as information: the 2023 Q1 Corporate Services Department results, FIN 23-11 2023 first quarter finance department results. 13.2.4 FRS 23-08 fire services 2023 Q1 report. Operations and Development OPD 23-26 2022 fourth quarter Operations and Development Services. OPS 23-29 2023 first quarter Operations and Development Services. OPD 23-25 2023 first quarter Building Planning Bylaw Services results.
Thank you. And I should clarify that was residential development because industrial development is up and we'll continue to see some positive things in industrial moving forward as well. Any questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next, we move over to the CAO regarding the CMHC Housing Accelerator Fund application update.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and councillors. It's a pleasure to present the report on the CMHC Housing Accelerator Fund. Together between town staff and county staff, we've been working on this for some time. And what's before you is to seek council approval in principle as part of the first stage with the application. So the portal is expected to open at the end of this month and will be open for about 45 days. After which, should the town be successful in its funding application, once we receive the agreement, prior to signing the agreement, we then would come back to council to formally approve all the action plan initiatives at that time prior to signing the agreement. This funding program is designed to incentivize local actions to accelerate or increase the housing supply. Some of the challenges that we have with this application is that the number of new units that is benchmarked against the average number of permits over the last 3 years. And as council is aware, we had record number of new permits issued due to various economic conditions. And so to look at increasing that beyond what we've had historically may be a bit of a challenge. And so now the focus of the application has been on the acceleration of the number of units. So we've met with the developers last week to pose the question of what is the current state of their development. So from draft plans of approval that have been approved to date, based on the updated economic conditions with increases in interest rates and so forth. We've asked them to provide us with data in terms of when the existing approvals are anticipated to be developed. And then based on the action plan initiatives draft that we have been working on, how much of those initiatives will help to accelerate that development. And so we're hoping to then analyze the data and look at the difference and hope that we can meet the minimum threshold of increasing the number of permitted units over the next 3 years by 10%. Should we meet that target, then we will have met the threshold, and then we can proceed with putting in the application. So we are still gathering the data from the developers. We've asked them to provide that information, and we've had some really good conversations, not only at the developers meeting, but we've been following up with developers on the data that they've submitted. And so what some of the benefits that we've incurred as part of this application, even if we don't receive any of the funding, we've been able to mobilize conversations and dialogue around process and information sharing. So for example, the type of units and when that development will occur will actually inform the hydro load index, something that we've been assisting them with. And not only for the next few years, but also for the next 10-year period. Also, in discussions in trying to work with your county staff and gathering this data, there is actually a process that I found out that the county does for as each draft plan of subdivision is approved, data from each one of those approved plans is actually extracted and it is captured on an ongoing basis. But that information is not shared widely. So even trying to create a process between town and county staff to look at that data and make it available through a portal so it's available to all departments so that whoever can utilize that data and make better decisions has that data available to them. Also, the engagement with developers and county staff. We've been able to gather some meaningful feedback on ways that we can streamline our processes. So again, we're still working through the data gathering stage. Not sure whether we'll be able to meet the threshold of being able to submit the application. But just given the timing of council meetings and when the portal will open, again, agreement in principle to proceed should everything line up. And then we'll be back a second time before any agreements are signed, should we be successful, to look at the detailed action plan initiatives and any costing around that. Open to any questions.
Councillor Parsons.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I read the report. I understand it is in the early stages and it's a bit fluid at this point. I just wonder if you could, and I understand there could be up to $20,000 per unit if allocated to assist in the housing costs. Could you just speak to potentially how many affordable housing units this may convert to for Tillsonburg? Is it possible for you to forecast that in your early stages? Or is that impossible? I mean, we know there's a great need for affordable housing. I just wondered, are you able to estimate how this converts for us in Tillsonburg for affordable housing units? Thank you.
Not at the moment. Part of the data that we are waiting from developers is to provide that breakdown. We've asked, so for example, if a plan of subdivision had 79 units approved, in what year will those units come on stream and what type? Single family dwellings versus what they call the missing middle, garden suites, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes versus what they call other. Affordable housing is a component. The challenge with affordable housing, part of the conversations to date is that we don't necessarily foresee too many, only because it requires an agreement. Each developer requires an agreement to enter, a 10-year agreement to enter with the county, because and it has to meet the definition of affordable. There is both income thresholds and the dollar value, the sale of the property has a threshold as well. So it's not something that I believe that there'll be a great deal of, just given the discussions to date, but we are still in the gathering data stage from all the developers.
Just subsequent, would we know a timeline of when you may get through this information data gathering?
I'm hoping to have that by the end of this week, if I can get a hold of all the developers.
With regards to affordable housing, the funding comes from the county, and the county's put in extra dollars and the province submitted extra dollars, but for decades behind. It literally put a dent. And if you looked at a development with maybe 70 units, you might only end up with 10 or 15 affordable units in that entire building. So it's an absolute challenge. Whole buildings aren't built affordable. And then you have to have the developer come on board and agree to committing it for, X amount of years. So are there any other questions to Renato? It was a packed house for the developer meeting. Well done. It was a lot of work. And this application is very intense. There's a lot of components to it that need to be pulled together. So appreciate we've got someone good on it. Deputy Mayor.
Through you, is there any cost to the town for this outside of staff time, of course. And what I'm getting at is if we're approved, is there any commitments that we would have to uphold? Or is
So the funding that we would receive is based on the estimated number of units that we could either help to increase the number of permitted units or accelerate. So that may not necessarily align with how much money the town may spend. Through a conversation with CMHC, they anticipate that what they would provide would actually be more. But in terms of some early conversations, we are looking at, for example, what's in our 10-year capital plan, what was forecasted, and looking at what we could expedite to help accelerate this housing supply. So a lot of it may already be dollars that we were already anticipated to spend. And a lot of the initiatives are more policy based. So there are amendments to the zoning bylaw that would help developers incentivize or just increase the number of units that they can build on existing parcels of land, for example, reducing parking requirements and so forth. Some of the dollars that we are looking at now may actually also be looking at covering infrastructure upgrades that may be currently in the purview of the county. And so we're having conversations around if we did receive funding, would it be all initiatives that we undertake, or is some of this to be shared, for example, with the county? For example, water, wastewater servicing capacity. If we were to increase that capacity, that could meet the needs of future development across the town. So even if we don't get funding, some of the conversations and the initiatives that we have identified will actually benefit the town going forward.
Thank you. Councillor Parsons, you have a resolution.
Yes, Madam Mayor, moved by Parsons, seconded by Barras, that report titled CAO 2310 CMHC Housing Accelerator Fund application update be received as information, and that council approve in principle an application to the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation Housing Accelerator Fund. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Renato, for the very informative report. And any further questions from council? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next, we move to Community Healthcare Committee appointments. Councillor Parker, you've got a resolution.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Rosehart, that report titled Community Healthcare Committee Appointments be received as information, and that a bylaw to amend bylaw 2023-009, being a bylaw to appoint members to Town of Tillsonburg advisory committees, be brought forward for council's consideration.
Thank you. Any questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Bridge Street Reimagination Task Force. Cephas, did you have any comments regarding this?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Govesi and members of council. So this is the culmination of the work done by the Bridge Street Reimagining Task Force. Basically, this is the process to potentially select a consultant to do that work and to do that redesign that council has previously directed. But I do have the chair of the task force here, Mike Bossy, and I would invite him to make a few comments if that's okay with council.
Okay.
That's just okay.
It's actually like there's a procedural bylaw. So I just found out. So anyways, yeah, so just welcome.
Oh.
You're here. I was kind of wondering why you were here. And I
thought, knowing they were talking about Stanley Cups, I thought I had 4. So I was, anyway. Thank you, Mayor Govesi, councilors, team from the town. Anyway, so I was asked to be involved with this little task force, and it's quite an exciting initiative, and it's very educational as well, but pretty excited about what's conceptually going to happen with that with Bridge Street itself. But I think it ties more into an overall plan, a master plan of some kind for downtown. But the fact that I got to sit with a group of from all these different businesses and organizations that came together to select the individual or the individual firm to do the consulting report. Just by way of process, we had 4 responses to the RFP. Right out of the gate, 2 of them we eliminated because it didn't meet the quality benchmarks we had set. We narrowed it down to 2 firms, and we had them do presentations. GSP Group presented on the 6th, and Shift Landscape produced on the 13th. And then we went and rescored again, and we land on Shift Landscape Architectural Company as our advisor of choice. And for phase 1, they came in at 67,746, and phase 2, 13,155. So if there's any more questions or anything like that, I can comment on process. That's pretty exciting stuff, though.
Does anyone have any questions for the chair of the committee?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I have the pleasure of working along with this committee on the task force. I wonder if you, Chairman Bassi, might just maybe speak to the process and how this organization plans to engage the public in terms of seeking their input. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Parsons. They demonstrate all these different ways they went on similar projects to ours. And this is the neat part about when they were talking about other engagements that they had. Every time they illustrated something about a project they'd done, they tied it back to Bridge Street. And every time you ask them a question, they point out something and tied it back to Bridge Street. So besides the social media stuff and the actual from chalkboards in the parks to all the things they have done on social media as far as getting the community of Tillsonburg involved in this very special project. I was really quite pleased, and they seemed more excited than we were. And I think I'm a pretty excited person on this, about this whole thing. So that was refreshing as well.
Any further questions? Thank you very much.
Well, I didn't have to read all this.
We look forward to seeing the final results.
So thank you.
Councillor Luciani.
Yeah, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Spencer that report EDM 23-10, Bridge Street Reimagining Task Force recommendation regarding design consultant be received. And B, that RFP 2023-009 professional consulting services to develop a streetscaping plan for Bridge Street be awarded to Shift Landscape Architecture Company Incorporated of Guelph in the amount of $67,746, non-recoverable HST included, and an additional amount of $13,155 non-recoverable HST included for the 2 provisional areas. And see that staff be authorized to execute the agreement with Shift Landscape Architecture Company Incorporated.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, and that would be carried. Surplus land declaration. Cephas, do you have anything to add to the report?
Thank you, Mayor Galvezi. I think the report speaks to itself. Council has previously declared a portion of this unopened right-of-way as surplus to the town's need and approved an agreement of purchase and sale. Additional 8 property owners, not acres. Additional 8 property owners are interested as well. We received that interest in writing, so we're looking to clear the remaining, not the remaining portions, but another 8 portions of that right-of-way as surplus to the town's needs. I will note that I have walked the street myself and talked to the property owners and the other ones surrounding it that aren't backing on it. And to be honest, I think that any concerns that previously been identified have been addressed. So thank you.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from council? Deputy Mayor.
Nope. We got it now. Moved by Barra, seconded by Rosehart. The report EDM 23-11 titled Surplus Land Declaration, multiple portions of unopened right-of-way south of Woodhaven Drive be received as information. And that the unopened right-of-way lands located south of Ridge Boulevard and Woodhaven Drive, described as parts of Part A, Plan 41R 940 and portions of a 1 foot reserve described as part of block 45, plan 41M 232 south of Woodhaven Drive be closed. And part C, that portions of the unopened right of way described as parts of plan B, plan 41R 940, and portions of a 1 foot reserve described as parts of block 45, plan 41M 232 south of Woodhaven Drive be declared surplus to the needs of the town of Tillsonburg in accordance with bylaw 2021-031, which is land disposition, including suitable information or notification to the public, and part D, that a road closure bylaw be brought forward for council's consideration.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, carried. Next, we move to a report from the Director of Operations and Development regarding the Rainbow Crosswalk request. And I'll open up to you, Jonathan, if you've got any comments.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to council, just two notable items since the time of writing this report that I want to make or bring to your attention. One being the opinion offered by the MTO in the installation or the possible installation of a rainbow crosswalk at the intersection of Bridges and Broadway Street, and that the framework is relatively there, that they're in support, or rather they won't have us go through a permitting process, and that we are allowed to carry forward with that. And one other notable item, upon in and around the time that this report was submitted, we did receive one letter of opposing said installation, but unfortunately I wasn't able to attach this to the schedule. So I just wanted to bring it up that we had one letter opposing. Any questions or comments?
Councillor Parker.
Through you, Mayor Gilvezi, to Director Graham. Just reading through the agreement or the installation and maintenance, I didn't see anything. If it is damaged once it gets installed, who's actually going to be responsible for the upkeep of that? I know that every year Pride Oxford is going to do the upkeep, but what happens if it's damaged?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Parker, the intention in the consultation that I've had with Oxford Pride is that they would repair it in accordance to our maintenance for the period of 5 years.
Should that not be written in the agreement though? Like to Councillor Parker's concern, I didn't see anything about, I saw May. I think I saw each May that it was freshened or redone, but I didn't see anything regarding ongoing regular maintenance.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I can certainly add that clause in. I was taking a similar agreement and approach that they had with the city of Woodstock, and through the consultation it was just offered that that's would be their general course of action, but I can add that in, no problem at all.
Councillor Rosart.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Jonathan. So the white lines are the towns and the colored lines will be Pride. So if our lines are damaged, who will be repairing those lines if there is anything damaged or anything done?
Specifically towards the lateral lines that are encompassing the crosswalk. My interpretation is that that's still part of the crosswalk, so they would have to maintain the white lines for a period of 5 years. But we can speak specifically to that in the agreement. But a crosswalk hatching detail typically is considered both the parallel lines and the lines in between. So if more refinements required, and the intention is also to include the council motion and a snippet of the actual design itself, and we can make sure that that's clearly identified.
And follow up, Madam Mayor. So how long a period of time do they have? We're looking at people crossing, people elderly that have sights, dogs who are trained to walk between the white lines. So now we're looking at issues like if there's anything happens to them, how long will it take for that to be repaired? Is there a timeline?
We can add a timeline to it. I think would be reasonable as 5 business days, because they do retain a third party company to do this. But again, with the interactions that I've had with Pride and from what I've heard from other organizations such as Ingersoll, they've been pretty quick to respond. in removing or and relocating and upkeep as it relates to these crosswalks, but we can certainly add that in as well.
May I do a follow-up, Madam Mayor? So the area that we're putting them in is well used by transport trucks, big trucks, dump trucks. So that wear and tear in that area, will it be worse than if it was on a side street, like by the Station Arts?
Certainly, there is something to be said about with higher traffic volume, the wear and tear will be more prevalent. But the base coat, if you remove the pigment of the conversation and the actual paint itself, it's intended to not only be installed on roadways, but it does wear and tear. It does have natural wear and tear to it. So it would just be part of a general maintenance schedule. And that's why May of every year was picked.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Any further questions to Jonathan? I have one, and it's regarding the 5-year term. So we have to assume that this may not be the only crosswalk that comes forward to this council, that there may be others, and I've seen others in other communities from different groups. Why the 5 years? So why not at the end of the 5 year, there's an opportunity for the organization to renew the contract for another 5 years? Like, I'd be curious as to why the taxpayers would be taking it over at the end of 5 years. Can you answer that? Like, that's the way I'm reading it. Am I interpreting it correctly? Number one.
Through Madam Mayor, that is the correct interpretation, and that's just a blanket term that Oxford Pride has had with other organizations. This is not an executed agreement. So certainly if that is a no-go or a negotiation piece that council wishes to expand on, that can be added to the agreement as well.
Does council have any thoughts in that regard, that at the end of 5 years that it could be to reach out to the organization for it to be renegotiated? And if there is no renegotiation, I think council would have to look at it at that time as to whether you keep it, or, like, I'm talking, it could be any sidewalk. I'm not bringing one out versus the other, but we may end up with more. And I don't want the taxpayers to be on the hook for possibly maintaining a multiple number of sidewalks moving forward. So I'm just looking for some consensus as to what council feels on this.
Just a general comment. First, I guess, is that I'm also not in favor of taxpayer dollars paying for the crosswalk, because we have a crosswalk there that taxpayers have paid for. But this particular one is being paid by Pride and is going to be maintained by Pride. And I think if we get into other crosswalks, which I'll be honest, I'm in favor of decorating these things because I think it looks better. But if it's another crosswalk or another organization, if they came through with similar terms that they were going to pay for it and pay for the maintenance, I think it's something we could entertain. The 5-year mark, in Pride's agreement, they're talking about the end of 5 years, the artwork can be removed, or it can be, the project's begun anew. And begun anew at that stage, to me, would say you'd assess it. And if it needs to be redone, it would be redone and a new agreement entered into. And if it didn't, then it would be either put back in or removed. So I guess to your point is you're saying at the end of 5 years, should we look at just renewing it? And I'm in agreement with that, but it would have to depend upon, the climate at the time, whether Pride's even wanting to go forward with this. It's no different than any other organization would be at the end of 5 years. Do they want to continue?
But I think we're reading the agreement different. And that's where I was seeking clarification from Jonathan. From what I read, the contract is done in 10 years and then the town's assuming the responsibility. Is that the way it reads? 5 years. What did I say? 5 months? 5 years. I'd like clarification from Jonathan. Let's understand what the contract says.
So the intention is that after 5 years, our relationship with Oxford Pride would cease in terms of the financial contribution and the maintenance activities related to the crosswalk. In keeping with the intention of the original delegation and what was presented originally to this council, that's the term that was identified, and that's the term that I pushed ahead. We can certainly keep it open at the back end for the possibility of negotiating a renewal clause. Subject to that, there are other contributions from other sponsorships that we could seek from other third-party individuals locally or external to the organization, or most likely what would end up happening is that it would be considered a budget item in 5 years from now, because we would want to set aside the appropriate funds in order for us to maintain it in perpetuity if we were going to maintain it. And that would be something that would come forward in 5 years if we don't have a successful rollover in terms.
Councillor Parsons.
Madam Mayor, I would think it would be in our best interest to have a clause added in the proposed contract for a renewable term agreed to mutually by the parties. That's what I would put in there. Thank you.
And then if the party that puts in a sidewalk doesn't agree to renew it, then the council of the day would have the option to remove it. Okay, so that's where I want to be very clear that the taxpayers aren't going to end up paying for multiple sidewalks 5 or 6 years down the road. Councillor Parker.
I'd just like to add comment. I'm in agreement with that. At the end of the 5-year term, that the opportunity to renew is available. Yeah.
Okay, so are we clear? We're clear. Councillor Rosar.
Just a question through to Jonathan. So how do we know that from now to the end of the 5 years that there will be sufficient money to cover the costs? Are we guaranteed anything? Are we given extra money? How does that work?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Rosehart. In terms of the fund, I think what you're getting at is, will Oxford Pride have enough funds 3 years from now to do the maintenance that's required? Well, that's the intention of the agreement, that they would have to maintain it for the period of 5 years. And then they would be in breach of that agreement. But again, in terms of the dialogue that I've had with other local municipalities, they've been quite quick to maintain and transparent on how long they're going to be out there. But that's the whole point of entering into the agreement.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Any other questions or comments? I just have a brief statement. I will be supporting this. However, it should be recognized that this has been a difficult month. I've been vilified by people. I've received nasty emails. I've received emails in support. I've received emails opposed. And during this month, did anybody remember it was Men's Mental Health Month? We've lost sight of a lot of things. So I do want to say, although I'm in support of this, I have family members that I love that are gay. I have friends. But we also have to remember, as a council, we're responsible for all 20,000 people in town. We have homelessness problems, rape victims, children not being fed because groceries are expensive. Moving forward, I'm appealing to everyone in the community that we remember that this council is not secular, and we cannot just look through a narrow lens, that we are in a community that has a whole host of problems. We've got a water crisis that I'm going to say has taken up a great amount of my time this month. So I apologize. I may not have been an advocate for one group or the other, but whatever. I believe this council will support this crosswalk. We support Pride by putting up a flag. We also supported Pride by doing a very wonderful light show that the staff put together in the clock tower. So recognizing that we are trying to be all encompassing, but also recognizing by doing that sometimes it does create diversity and it does create issues in the community that, I or other councillor members may be on the receiving end of that. So moving forward, June is a very important month, but we also cannot lose sight of all the other encompassing things that this council's in charge of. So thank you, and Councillor Spencer.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Parsons, that report OPD 2328 Rainbow Crosswalk request be received as information, and B, the town staff coordinate with Oxford Pride the installation of a rainbow crosswalk at the corner of Broadway and Bridge Street between the Clock Tower and Kelsey's Restaurant, being the relative design of ladder, and C, that the mayor and CAO be authorized to enter into a rainbow crosswalk installation and maintenance agreement in terms of reference with Oxford Pride for a period of 5 years. And if I could speak to that, Madam Mayor. Just
grace me with just a moment, just because there were many comments about the agreement should include a certain set of language. So I took notes on it. So I'd like to just reposition those bullet points just so that it's clear what's to be included in the agreement, if that's agreeable to council.
Absolutely.
So the first bullet had the agreement should include damage coverage for the course of the term, damage coverage to include the parallel white lines, repairs to be noted to be addressed within 5 business days, and language regarding ability to renew the agreement at the end of the 5-year term in agreeable terms. And should Oxford Pride not wish to renew, the town will review its options.
So just checking with the mover, is that acceptable? And the seconder? Okay, good. I think you've captured everything. Well done. And Councillor Spencer, go ahead.
I just wanted to speak to this, just with the reports that we got from Traffic Committee and Jonathan with the Director of Operations. And I noticed Councillor Rosehart's recommendation of it being by the Station Arts, but I think given the Bridge Street reimagination, that might be not feasible as well. And this area was picked because it's shorter distance across Broadway and less used. As well as the cost efficacy for the latter style. But I think that I'd also like to speak to the part of symbols of equity and inclusion. This is a big hot topic and I understand that, but even our publicly funded schools, Thames Valley, 3 tiers of government, these are rooted in Ontario human rights codes, and it's in no way to attempt to change anyone's individual religious or creed-based values or beliefs, but it is to demonstrate in ensuring community members and their families, as well as staff and their family members that might have somebody that or they identify in this community to feel safer in town. It's a representation of support for our community. And symbols of inclusion go beyond belief. They help to mitigate mental crisis and suicide, promote mental health and well-being. So I think that it's important for council. We do talk about, everybody, the homeless, people that need food. And I think we recognize all these things. But I think it's also important to recognize this. And as councillors, if economic development came to us and said we want to put a mosque in or Kingdom Hall or a parish, it might not necessarily parallel with our belief systems, but it would be discriminatory to vote against that. So rainbow paint doesn't cause harm or division or discriminatory illegal acts. Nor do we need to make each other believe like each other, but it could be just a rainbow crosswalk that looks really pretty, or it could be a symbol for somebody to feel like they belong and feel safe in this town. And I think that that's important to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spencer. Does anyone else have any comments? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? That's opposed. That's carried. Next, we're moving on to some advisory committee minutes. Councillor Spencer.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Parsons, that council receives as information the Community Healthcare Committee minutes dated May 16th, 2023, and the Accessibility Advisory Committee minutes dated June 20th, 2023.
Does anyone have any questions regarding the advisory minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, carried. Councillor Parker, you introduced a notice of motion on June 14th.
I do. Moved by myself and seconded by Deputy Mayor Beres. The council requests staff to bring a report to council for the 2024 budget in regards to the town of Tillsonburg covering the tipping fees for residential users at the transfer station. I'd like to speak to that, Madam Mayor. This is something that has been a hot topic since the county took over operations, and now our residents are paying for their tipping fees. So I'd like to see a report come back with details about the costing and what it would cost the town of Tillsonburg to cover this. Woodstock has actually started covering the tipping fees at their transfer station for their residents as well. This is an opportunity for us to kind of help curb the illegal dumping that happens when people have to pay to go to the transfer station. Back ditches by the farmers' fields and stuff get filled up. So I think this is a positive opportunity, and I'm looking for council support. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Councillor Parsons?
Just a question through you, Madam Mayor, to the mover. Would the wording that we have in this motion allow staff to look at various models of the transfer station as we knew it, at least maybe to look at less times per year or excuse me, per month or things like that. I just want to make sure that staff can bring various options back to us for consideration. I do support your motion. I think I'm glad to hear it's coming back. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? Councillor Spencer?
I agree. I think we've all heard disappointment from people about these tipping fees. But I've also heard not as many as the other of what that will do to our tax rate. So I'm just curious that with that report, if we could include that through the movers.
That would be the goal of the resolution.
So Jonathan, do you have an understanding of what's required? There's one comment that I want to make, and people have pointed out, like there's no scales at the Tillsonburg transfer station. And to me, this is a problem. And they set this flat rate of over, $100. And people are saying they can go to Salford, and if they get weighed, that the same load is costing $60. So I'm not sure. I know that the county, I have asked at the county, and they said that, well, it's an average, but I'm not sure that maybe there's enough different levels of pricing. Like we just went with this, ridiculous price. Like, do you understand what I'm saying? Where the concern lies? Because we're not actually weighing it. It's a guesstimate. Oh, you've got X amount, so that's what you're being charged.
Through you, Madam Mayor, just to give a little bit of context, the waste management is controlled and intended to be managed by Oxford County. The way that the transfer station came to being was that the town took on the responsibility of designated land, doing the ECA, doing the site plan control, and getting approval for that. That circumvented the waste management agreement we have with the county currently in place. So they've taken control back of that relationship and rather kept it status quo, except for the fees associated with tipping. In the budget line item for the county, and I'd have to know, I'll look into it further, and this will be part of the report. It's anywhere from $200,000 and $250,000 that the tax base would have to bear in order to subsidize, very similarly to the city of Woodstock's transfer station. So that would be the contribution that would have to come to the town to make everything equal. Barring that, with knowing the footprint within the current transfer station that we have, it's very unlikely that we would introduce scales there at all, because it's intended as a transfer station. Sulphur is a little bit different. Woodstock is a little bit different as well too, but we just don't have the footprint or the revenue to generate to suggest that a scale would be warranted. Again, we can vet this process through the forthcoming report to council, but I would err on the caution that it might have to be lumped up into the 2024 budget cycle once we determine what direction we're going to go with. So I've heard those exact same complaints come from residents alike. And it is kind of troubling how this influence came in from the county to take it over and how these fees were structured. But we would have to go uphill, as it would be, and change the fee structure fairly and equitably over the entire county's waste management portfolio. But again, we can identify those items as we go through the report.
I think there could be options too, like partial subsidies or, full subsidy. And then also just to recognize that this is residential users. I'm a firm believer that residents shouldn't be subsidizing contractors that are doing renovations or commercial industry or things like that this is residential use, correct? Okay, so which might not carry the high price tag, as high of a price tag. Like no construction materials.
We can certainly look into that. And I think what I'm hearing is it's almost a matrix that this council would like to consider. If you fall into this category and you're bringing this, then this is your fee. If you're falling into that category, but you're external. But again, we have to do it in consultation with the county. Luckily, they've done this with Woodstock. So I think we can find a way to persevere.
Okay, thank you. So any other further questions? We'll call the vote. All those in favor, Opposed, and that's carried. Councillor Rosehart, you have a resolution, a notice of motion to put on the floor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My mother notion I presented at June 26, 2023 council meeting, whereas the town of Tillsonburg Recreation, Culture and Parks Departmental Service Review was completed by clerical group in April of 2020. And whereas several of the report findings recommended the reduction of flower beds and gardens in parkettes. Be it therefore resolved that the staff review recommendations from the 2020 Recreation, Culture and Parks Department Service Review conducted by the clerical group pertaining to the reduction of flower beds and gardens. And two, that staff bring back a report to council identifying cost savings regarding the limiting of the number of flower beds and gardens in the town. And may I speak to that, Madam Mayor?
No, because this is a
Okay.
notice of motion and we'll be dealing with it at the July 17th meeting.
Thank you.
And you'll need a seconder for that meeting. So thank you. And I think Councillor Luciani has a notice of motion.
Yeah, notice of motion for the next meeting that staff be directed to bring back a report on a program to control the expanding Canada goose population within the town of Tillsonburg to help mitigate the negative impacts they have on local residents and park areas.
Thank you, Councillor Luciani, and we will also deal with that at the next meeting, July 17th. Bylaws, Councillor Luciani.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Rosehart that a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 3295 as amended and a bylaw to amend bylaw 2023-009 being a bylaw to appoint members to the town of Tillsonburg Council advisory committees be read for a first, second, and third and final reading, and that the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign the same and place the corporate seal thereunto.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? All those in favor? Opposed, and that would be carried. Councillor Parsons?
Mayor, moved by Parsons, seconded by Parker, that bylaw 2023-056 to confirm the proceedings of council meeting held June 26, 2023 be read for a first, second, third, and final reading, and the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign the same and place the corporate seal thereunto. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parsons. Questions, comments? All those in favor? Opposed, and that would be carried. Items of public interest. We'll start down with CFIS. Back into close.
I was just going to ask about close, but I think that was asked already.
It's after. Clerk's all over there. Councillor Spencer.
Just something that's brought to my attention this week, and I don't know who to talk to about it, but a lot of people have been putting their garbage out, like being for the collection, and a lot of it hasn't been picked up. Who would they call and who would they talk to, Madam Mayor?
Well, only zone 2 is supposed to be done today. It depends what zone you live in. There's 3 zones. One zone was done, I believe, last week. I don't know the dates off the top of my head. I believe zone 2 is done today and zone 3 will not be done till July 3rd. So if you can visit the Oxford County website or call the County of Oxford. Okay. Councillor Parker, customer service also may have some information there. They're very helpful there as well.
Nothing from me, Jimmy.
Thank you.
Birthday girl, everyone, happy birthday to our clerk. Deputy Mayor.
I am wearing red, and that's in respect for Canada Day coming up on Saturday. And I believe are you going to speak to what's happening? Happy Canada Day. We'll let you do that.
Councillor Luciani.
Thanks.
Councillor Parsons.
Just briefly, Madam Mayor, you'll remember volunteering with me and painting the home Habitat for Humanity. I'm pleased to announce that this week there will be a key ceremony to turn the keys of the home over to Melissa and her young family after countless hours of volunteerism by numerous organizations in the community. It's going to be a reality. Tillsonburg's first Habitat for Humanity will be this week on June 28th at 11 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you. Jonathan, Tina.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm excited to announce that our 2024 budget survey is live. There is access on that through the town of Tillsonburg's website. And it is in conjunction with the County of Oxford this year. So I encourage all of council and the community to please, participate and fill out the survey.
It's, thank you for bringing that up. And it's actually, if you're confused or questioning what the municipality does versus the county, the budget survey actually answers all the questions because it's laid out extremely well, which defines the roles. Julie.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through to council. Just a few updates. Thursday, June 29th at 1 p.m. The museum will be celebrating its 50th anniversary. So we're inviting people to a cake cutting. Patty and her team are putting together at the museum. I also wanted to update council that we've, in 1 week of operation at Lake Lisgar at our outdoor water park, we've had over 600 attendees, which is phenomenal. The community's been great in attendance and supporting. And I just want to send a huge thank you to Andrea and Julie D on all of their work with the staff over in the aquatics team. They've done a phenomenal job prepping that site. And just a big kudos to them. Julie also was able to secure some funding. We have a confirmed sponsor for Canada Day swim, so it would be free to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. So I just have a few things. My first was, oddly enough, to remind motorists to watch for Gase crossings throughout town. They're crossing on Broadway, they're crossing on North Street, they're crossing on Potters, they're crossing on Concession. So just please be aware. Canada Day celebration, there's a Station Arts breakfast from 8 to 11 a.m. I hear there's cake involved. Annandale House, Canada Day Fun Fair, July 1st, 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. They also have cake. I think cake's a common theme in this town. Cakes, goodies, games and puzzles, and an otter hunt. And it's while supplies last. Tomorrow evening from 6 to 8, there's a Zoom meeting. It's the Water and Wastewater Master Plan Zoom meeting. That will be hosted by the County of Oxford. It is only a Zoom meeting. It is not in person. If you Google Speak Up Oxford, there's a link on the Speak Up Oxford's website for that. And that's all I have this evening. I'm going to say goodbye to the public as this council will have to return to closed session. So you can just let us know when we're offline, Julie.